Hey there, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of our 4-part data tracking series. I'm Michaela, and today I am so excited to run you through how we can easily track data in our sessions, especially by organizing our sessions in a way that makes data tracking not only easy, but also really effective. Before we jump in, if you have not already watched part 1, where Corey ran you through how to determine what data you should be tracking in your sessions, I will link that video below so that you can check that one out first. But for now, let's go ahead and jump on in to organizing your sessions in a way that will make data tracking easy. Now, before we get into the how-to, I wanted to run through some mistakes that we've noticed in literacy intervention. And these are both mistakes that we've seen with other educators and SLPs that we're working with, but also mistakes that we have made here ourselves. So some of these include not organizing sessions in a hierarchy. And what I mean by that is not organizing sessions in a way that work from our basic skills all the way up through more complex skills in each lesson. I'll hit more on that in a minute. Another mistake is writing goals, whether they're progress monitoring goals or IEP goals, in a way that it's not easy to track. We always want to make sure that our goals are very straightforward and easy to track if we want to easily be able to track data to them and make sure our students are growing. Or the last mistake that we are noticing is that well-meaning SLPs and educators, we will design a whole session, we'll pull activities and see what we want to use, and then we'll try to figure out how to track data along with that lesson. Now, that sounds intuitive, but what we should actually be doing is the opposite. We should be determining what data we need to be tracking on and then building our lessons around that. So, like I said before, we've made these mistakes too, but what we've seen is that the most impactful and effective educators, interventionists, and SLPs are taking the data that they know needs to be tracked. Again, I'll link that video below if you haven't watched it yet. And then we're working to build the lessons around that data. So what this looks like, or how we recommend this looking like, is working through basic skills through more complex skills in every single lesson in both a reading and writing lens, hitting on all 5 core components of literacy for all of these skills. So how we do this is for reading, we'll work through phonological awareness, phonics, vocab, fluency, and comprehension, and then we'll work on that for writing as well, going through the same skills. We do not recommend working on only phonological awareness until that's mastered, and then working on just phonics until that's mastered, and then just vocabulary. That will have a very broken effect on your students' overall literacy knowledge and the ability to pull all of these skills together. What we do is we hit on all of these in one lesson so that students can see how they're flowing together. So, for example, if I was working with students on the CK pattern, we would start in phonological awareness and I'd ask them some phonological awareness questions like, what word do these syllables make? Back, pack. They make backpack. If we're working at the phoneme level, I might ask them, what word do these sounds make? K, rock. We'll go through those phonological awareness tasks. Then we'll jump into phonics, where I'm giving students words with the CK pattern, and we're reading through the words to address phonics. Then we'll go into vocabulary. I might ask them to define rock for me in 3 different ways. We have rock like a stone that we find outside. We have rock like a back and forth rocking motion. And we have rock like rock music, describing the genre of music. Then we'll go into fluency at both the sentence level and then the paragraph, and working our way up to the passage level, addressing comprehension questions for those fluency passages. We'll hit on all of these skills for reading, and then we'll go back and hit on all of them for writing. We'll go back to phonological awareness. Tell me the sounds you hear in duck. Tell me the sounds you hear in crack. And we'll have students identifying those sounds. We'll move into phonics and spelling. Then we'll go to vocabulary. Let's take the spelling words we just did and sort them into nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. We'll move into fluency, where we'll practice writing at the word, sentence, paragraph, and passage level. And comprehension, when it comes to writing, we're looking at, can they write a narrative prompt, an opinion prompt, an informative prompt, a persuasive prompt. We're going to work on all of that with students as well. Now, to hit all of those skills does take a bit of time. It does take a while to get through them, So depending on how long you have with your students and your setting, you may need to break this up into multiple days. Often I will do a reading day and a writing day if I'm working one-on-one with students. But depending on if you have a group or if you're in a setting that only gives you 20 minutes at a time, you may need to break that up as well. And that's totally fine. The benefit here is that as long as you're following the same structure each time, you'll be able to take the benefits of setting up your lessons this way, which we'll get to in just a second. The other great thing about setting up your lessons this way is depending on the students in your group. Let's say you have a group of students, they may have different goals that you're able to track in this lesson. Let's say Johnny has a phonological awareness goal, so you can hit on that when you go through phonological awareness. But Sarah has a single word reading goal that you'll track in phonics. And then maybe Christopher has a fluency goal that you can track when you hit fluency. But you're running through students through all of these different skills so that they can easily see how they all come together and work together. So this is a great way to hit on all of the skills and give yourself opportunities to track on data for all of the different goals that you're trying to track with all of the different students that you have. Now, with our data tracking, we do have some clear do's and don'ts that we want to run through. We do recommend making sure your goals are easy to track. When we think about an IEP or a progress monitoring report or a treatment plan, we want to make sure that our goals are set up with clear yes, no trials and responses. So we don't want to say that a student will write a sentence with 75% accuracy. Okay, we don't have anything yes or no to track there. What do we mean by 75% accuracy? Is that 75% accuracy with capitals? Is it their spelling? We want to have really clear yes, no. So for example, if we're doing a single word reading goal, we might say that they're able to read 4 out of 5 words for the target pattern, maybe CK, over so many trials. We have a very clear yes, no, they either read the word or they didn't correctly so that we can track that easily. We also want to make math easy for ourselves. If you have a goal that says your student should be making 80% accuracy, let's do that out of 5 trials because we'll have 20, 40, 60, 80, or 100% accuracy based on how many we're giving them. So either 4 out of 5 or 8 out of 10. If we're tracking 80% accuracy and I'm giving my student 7 trials and they reach 5 out of 7, that's a lot harder for me as the instructor off the top of my head to say, was that 80% accuracy? Was it not? I'm not sure. Let me pull out the calculator and go through it. So set it up in a way that allows you to track that easily. We also want to make sure we're planning ahead and setting goals for what our students need. This means that when you plan ahead to organize your session, you may be tracking different data points for different students. Like I said before on this slide, you may have Johnny doing a phonological awareness goal. So each time you go through phonological awareness, you're going to note that for him. But then Sarah has a word reading goal and Christopher has a fluency goal. You need to plan ahead so that you have the ability to track data for your different students based on their specific goals. Now, when we go back and write the goals, when we're going back to when we're writing them, we want to make sure we're targeting students' specific needs. If Christopher doesn't need a phonological awareness goal, he needs fluency, then let's write the goal around fluency. We don't need to include a phonological awareness goal for him. We also, on the same note, want to be thinking about what goals are going to get them to their end goal of reading and being able to take meaning from what they're reading. When we're writing goals, we want to make sure that we're using a really well-written goal over hitting all of the different things. A rhyming goal may not be as practical for a student's end goal of reading and taking meaning from what they're reading as a phonics goal or as a fluency goal. So be mindful there of what goals you're setting so that instead of just trying to track everything, you're tracking things that will get students to their end goal and that we're targeting the holes and deficits we see each specific student having. Our last do in this page is to make sure your goals are aligning with the program and activities that you are using. Again, we want to determine what data needs to be tracked first and then organize our lesson around that. But that means we need to make sure that the program we're using gives us activities that will allow us to target the goals we're setting. We can't write a goal and then say, well, I have this spelling goal or this writing goal, but I have nothing to track it. We need to make sure we're able to pull in activities that will align with the goals we've written. On our don't side, we want to make sure we don't have ambiguous or weak goals in our data tracking and writing. So we don't want to write a goal, for example, student will read 70% of unfamiliar words in 2 out of 3 trials. This is ambiguous because unfamiliar words could be nonsense words because it's one that they haven't seen before. Is it a pattern the student hasn't learned yet? Is it a red word or a sight word? I don't know if I'm seeing that student what that goal meant. So we need to make sure that we're being really clear there. We also don't want to have weak goals. So 70% in 2 of 3 trials does not indicate mastery. What we want to be seeing is that they'll reach 90% in 4 out of 5 trials, or however many we need to make sure that they are mastering that skill. Please, please, please do not skip the planning and just say, okay, I've written these 3 or 4 goals for my student. We're going to run through the lessons we already had. And then by the time progress monitoring comes around, I'm going to have everything I need. Chances are when you get to that progress monitoring period, you're not going to have the data that will support those goals. You may if you are lucky, but it's going to take so much more work to go back and figure out, okay, when did I hit this goal? When did I track it? What data do I have? Instead, if you know that your student needs to hit a certain goal, plan each of your lessons to support them getting to that goal. Our last don't is please do not wait until progress monitoring to analyze your data. We don't want to just give students trial after trial after trial and not make sure that they're growing from each week to week or session to session. We don't want to wait for our progress monitoring assessments to know that they have or have not made growth there. We'll talk about this more in part 3 of our data tracking series, but data is for error correcting. The whole reason we're taking this data is to make sure that we are able to adapt and instruct students in a way that will help them reach their end goal and make progress week to week, so that by the time we get to that progress monitoring period, we know that they've made the growth or that they haven't, and we need to adjust to help them make that growth. So why we need to go about this way and why we need to set up our data in a way or set up our lessons in a way that makes data tracking easy is because, one, it makes data tracking easy. We want to make sure we're taking data so that we can make data-driven decisions for our students. We set it up this way so that we don't need to consciously spend time thinking about what activities we need to use, what data we can pull from those activities, which student in our group needs what data tracking activity. We can go through all of our lessons and get the data we need without spending a ton of time thinking about it. We can also set up data tracking sheets that follow the flow of these lessons. If you've got a group, you can set it up based on which students need which data points from that group. So going back to our example before, if Johnny needs PA, on your data sheet, you can have a PA bar for Johnny. If Sarah needs word reading fluency level, single word reading goal, you'll have a place to track that. If Christopher needs a fluency goal, you'll have a place to track that. You can set up the sheets so that you don't have to think consciously about what you're tracking on a sticky note or a scrap piece of paper. You'll already have it set up for you to guide the lesson as you go. The benefit for this or of this is that it's better for our students. If we know what we're doing in our lesson in terms of what data needs to be tracked, we're not going to have to pull new activities every single week and go through the motions of explaining the activities and how it flows together. Students will see how it comes together because you've done the same flow every week. If we go back to this slide, if every week we're starting with a reading-based phonological awareness task, then phonics, then vocab, then fluency and comprehension, then we do the same thing for writing. If you can explicitly explain how these come together, for example, if I ask a student how many sounds and what sounds they hear in the word, let's do kick. Then we go into an auditory drill and I say, okay, what sounds do you, or what letters make this sound? What says k? We have C, K, and CK. What says I? We have I. Then we run through a couple of other trials. When we get to spelling, I'm going to explicitly show my students how, okay, in this phonological awareness task, I asked you for how many sounds you heard in kick. You said k, I, k. Okay, what letters or letters make those sounds? K can be CK, C, or K. I is I. So we have, to spell the word now, we hear k, I, k, K, I, CK. We use CK because it comes after a short vowel at the end of a one-syllable word. I can work with them to show them how all of those activities fit together so that they're more easily going through the flow of these lessons and tying it all together to better read and write. If we're not doing this, not only is it going to waste time because we are pulling random activities and we have to go back and try to figure out how to target each student's goals, and we might miss opportunities to track data, but our data tracking is also going to be a mess. How many of you, go ahead and raise your hand at home or wherever you're watching this video, have had your desk look like this picture on the left? That is a real picture of my desk a couple of years ago when I was going through my lessons not set up in a way that made data tracking easy. And you can see it's a mess. I don't see where everything is. When it came to progress monitoring, it was much harder to analyze my data and figure out if my students made growth. It's so much more effective to have your lessons organized in a way where data tracking is easy, you're tracking the same thing every time so that your desk doesn't look like that. You don't have Post-its everywhere. You have your data all nice and clean in one spot. So to review, once you know what data needs to be tracked, again, if you haven't watched our video to determine that, go ahead and use the link below to watch that video. Organize your lessons in a way that makes this easy. Write your goals for your IEPs or your progress reports or your treatment plans in a way that will align with the goals that you want to be targeting for students, and it makes it easy. We're using trials like 4 out of 5 where we have a clear, okay, 80% instead of a 6 out of 7, or something that's going to make it harder. We want life to be simple. We want it to be easy, because when we spend less time fumbling through this data tracking process, if we make it easy for ourselves, we can be spending more of our time being the impactful educators and SLPs and interventionists that we want it to be for these students and helping them make more growth. So next week, we will talk about how to analyze your data to make decisions for next steps. But until then, I want you to take a look at or reflect on your current program and your current lessons, and let us know in the comments below, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well you feel like your lessons are aligning with a logical data tracking flow as they stand right now. So if you were to sit down for a lesson today, how comfortable are you tracking data, and how confident do you feel that your lesson is set up in a way that allows you to track that data easily? If you're scoring less than a 7, or even if you're scoring higher than a 7, but it's less than what you're wanting to, I want you to think about what's catching you in that process. What's hard? Is it that your kids aren't grouped in a way that makes data tracking easy? Is it that you don't have clear activities that align with the goals? Is it that the goals aren't written in a way that are easy to track? Think about that today and let us know in the comments below, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well you feel like your lessons align. And if you don't feel like they're aligning super well, why? What can be changed to make that easier for you? Like I said a moment ago, our next video will be about analyzing this data that you are tracking to make decisions on next steps for students to get them to close the gap. But until then, comment below with that scale of 1 to 10, and we will see you for part 3. Bye, everybody.